Alright, class.
Am I
Today,
scrungly on your stream?
what's that?
Am I wiggly on your stream? Let's see.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Perfect.
Yep. Alright. So today, last week we covered a relatively brief history introduction to Battletech. Today we're actually going to go over the piece of equipment that changed how warfare is fought. The battle mech completely changed the entire face of warfare in the 25th century. So the Mackie was a byproduct of the hegemony armed forces constantly trying to maintain some kind of technological military superiority. And in 2539, it finally manifested in this on screen. Uh, the Mackie 5S.
The Mackie. I've heard a lot of good things about the Mackie.
Yeah,
Yes.
the Mackie.
So
Zelensky's personal mech.
yeah, the Mackie itself is it's a product of its time compared to the equipment that would come after, woefully inadequate for the battlefield. But as the first battle mech ever made, the pilot was able to just completely blow four Merkava Mark 7 heavy tanks out of the water. Now, the 5S is essentially the prototype model. So, all things considered, a large laser, an AC5, and a prototype PPC. Not awful. Cruising speed of approximately 30k an hour, max speed of 54k an hour. It's fine. It's good. It's an assault mech weighing 100 tons compared to the Atlas that comes later. Again, the Mackie's horribly inadequate. But considering the Atlas was able to run because the Mackie crawled, we had to start somewhere. Armor's not good. An AC-20 against certain mechs, an AC-20 is not really going to do much. But against the Mackie, an AC-20 is actually terrifying. A Demolisher, which is one of my favorite tank units to deploy, um, would actually be genuinely terrifying to a Mackie pilot.
The stats on the little shear right there, they don't look that bad.
Yeah, they're not terrible.
It's
They
respectable. It's a medium mech, right?
no, this is an assault. The
Oh,
first
that's an
mech,
assault. Okay.
yeah, the first mech ever made was an assault mech. It's also it's also technically supposed to fill the sniper role within a formation. So once it gets within a certain range, it does start to suffer pretty badly. The heat sink capacity is also not great with 17 single heat sinks. You can fire the AC5 and you can fire the PPC, but you're not going to be able to fire the laser at the same time without getting into some pretty significant heat overflow, which for me, I prefer that the mechs in my formations have controllable heat levels. Now, pretty quickly, the 5S was replaced with the 6S, which really only swapped out the AC5 for a prototype AC10 and the large laser for a pair of medium lasers. So we went from a long range sniper to a more close quarters juggernaut. We also lost a couple of heat sinks, so you can fire the PPC and stay heat neutral. As soon as you start having to fire that AC-10 or the medium lasers, you're going to start getting into having to cycle your weapons so that you don't overheat. But again, considering the fact that there were no other mechs at the time, this thing was a monster on the battlefield.
It looks adorable. It reminds you of a potato head toy.
Yeah,
It's got Jordans.
Yeah,
He's got some fucking Jordans. Where are those?
There's a big difference between the original 1980s artwork and the more modern stuff. 6S kept pretty much all of the same armor and internal components. There was not a lot of time difference between the 5S and the 6S. Now, when all of these mechs started getting produced, almost immediately, the other 5 great houses were sending spies in to try to capture an intact version of either the 5S or the 6S so that they could start cloning them, or at the very least get the blueprints and manufacturing data. So unfortunately for the Terran hegemony, Mechs did not stay in the hands of House Cameron for very long. And once they did begin to proliferate, we started getting into some of the other mechs that we're going to cover here. But the next big upgrade for the Mackie was to the 7A. And this is where the Mackie really starts to become what people think of when they think of a battle mech. Because they were able to switch out the primitive armor on the original 5 and 6S Mackie models, we're now able to have full 30 plus points of armor on the front of the legs, the torsos, the arms. Now an AC-20 is not that scary. Also jumped up to 21 heat sinks, so now the AC-20, the PPC, and the 2 large lasers that the unit is rocking are actually able to be fired with a little bit more openness. The range on the AC-20 is going to kind of limit you. You can't really alpha strike with the PPC and the large lasers and the AC-20, but you can definitely hit with the PPC and the 2 large lasers. You're going to remain well below heat capacity. And as you slowly work your way in range, eventually you're going to have to drop the PPC entirely because it does have that minimum range of 3 hexes. But that AC-20 is going to start kicking in, and that thing is really going to hammer whoever you hit with it.
I forget, what was Alpha? What does Alpha Strike mean again?
Alpha Strike is when you hit with every weapon system you have on your mech.
Okay.
Clanners really like their Alpha Strike capability.
They really do.
The 7A here is also where all of the bugs finally got worked out, and you'll notice the AC-20 is not a prototype, the PPC is not a prototype, the armor's not primitive. It's like everything just is. The mech is the battle mech is finally the battle mech.
Okay, so this was just the logical next step in making the modern conventional mech.
Yes. This the 7A is the father of all battle mechs. The 6S is the grandfather, and the 5S is the great grandpa of every battle mech in existence. If it wasn't for the Terran hegemony being able to build the 5S, you would not get the 6S, and without the 6S, you don't get the 7A, and without the 7A, well, you really just don't have anything. Now, the mech is still very, very limited in its capabilities. It doesn't have a lot of the fancier gear that we're going to see as we continue moving forward. But the 8B here is where we're kind of starting to see it. 21 single heat sinks, same amount of armor as the 7A. You've got 2 medium lasers, 2 AC-20s, and 2 PPCs now. So with the medium lasers and the AC-20, you get in close, you're still going to be able to hit really hard. But at long range, you've got a pair of PPCs. You can reach out and touch somebody and still remain heat neutral. This mech, for what it is a fantastic mech. If I'm gonna drop a Mackie onto a battlefield, this is gonna be the model that I bring out.
Even if it looks like a fancy trash can,
Yeah.
fancy potato head.
Yes, it is. Even though it looks like a fancy potato, I am
with
still,
Jordans.
Yeah, even though it looks like
Whoa.
it's a fancy potato wearing black Air Forces, like I'm gonna bring the mech rocking that Air Force energy, because this thing is finally like good. PPCs
That's
are
the mech you bring. Oh,
Hmm?
sorry.
Go ahead. This is the mech you bring.
I was gonna say this is the mech you bring whenever you want to say back in my day playing Battletech.
Yeah.
Back in my day, before there was Mechs or giant colossus super heavies,
Yeah.
we had sticks and a rock.
Back
And a
in
rock.
my day, before we had ECMs and Mechs and battle armor, we brought Mackies and tanks and we shot the crap out of each other.
Like real men.
Like real men. And then when you ran out of bullets for that AC-20, you stomped with your giant robot feet like a real man. It's the other thing that I want to point out here. You'll notice every single one of these has had a ballistic weapon, but a lot of its weapons have been energy based. Terran hegemony really likes their energy weapon. And we're going to see that continue as a trend as we continue to move through time with all of this stuff, because the Mackie set the standard. Now, there is one criticism that you can level at this Mackie here. There's no missile component. There's no scattershot component. Crit fishing is absolutely the standard that you eventually get to. This cannot do that. This is
There
uh,
what's the particular reason for that?
it just doesn't. It's just
Okay.
not the idea that the Terran hegemony went with just yet. The prevailing the prevailing battlefield theory that ends up coming to the forefront is going to be, you have your hole punching precision weapons like your AC-20s, PPCs, Gauss rifles, and then you have your crit fishing weapons, your SRMs, your LRMs, your machine guns. You want weapons that will punch through the armor and get into the internals, and then you want stuff that once it can get into the internals can start wreaking havoc on everything. For example, the right arm with its 34 points of armor plating. That's going to be one shot with the AC-20, or two shots with the AC-20, or roughly 4 shots with the PPC. And you're into the internals, and you potentially have the capability of knocking out the AC-20 completely. Because you take out one internal component for the AC-20, the entire gun goes down. At this point in time, that's going to be handled more by either your infantrymen with manned portable SRM launcher, or it's going to be handled by the tanks being used to support the Mackie. Because the Terran, while the Mackie is the monster of the battlefield, infantry is still the queen of the battlefield. So you're going to be in this position where, yeah, you're going to have things alongside the Mackie. You're going to have a lance of Mackies, sure, but that lance of Mackies is part of a larger company formation and a larger brigade formation that gets you into a position where you're going to have potentially 12 Mackies in a company, but then you're also going to have 12 tanks with their own autocannons, their own missile launchers, their own laser systems to support the Mackie. So if the Mackie punches through another Mackie's armor, you've got a lance of tanks with missile launchers that can blast into the internal components of the enemy Mackie.
Okay.
So from there,
Still a respectable stat sheet.
yes.
It's got plenty of hull points on it. It's a tanky little thing.
Oh yeah. Now, when we get into the
I say
9,
little, it's an assault mech.
yeah. When we get here into the 9H, now you really see what I'm talking about though. The 9H here, they've dropped a heat sink, which doesn't really affect the heat at all. You're still going to be able to fire both PPCs out to 18 hexes and stay heat neutral. But they've added a Beagle active probe. Now, the active probe is good because the active probe basically acts as an infantryman with a radio. It has a bunch of sensors built into it. It can detect enemy mechs, enemy formations, and feed that information back to the Mackie, which then lets the Mackie disseminate that information through the rest of the formation, allowing you to work in concert with each other. This version of the Mackie is actually built for combined arms warfare instead of just being a machine with a specific role. This one is where we finally start to see it being integrated into proper military formation. Now, the 9H has a brother, and the brother is the Royal variant. So the way the nomenclature works here is that the MSK 9H lowercase b denotes that it's a Royal variant. So this version gets to take advantage of all of the ultra fancy tech that House Cameron dumped into the Terran Hegemony Armed Forces, and more specifically the Star League Defense Forces. So you'll notice that even though the armor and the speed haven't changed, the heat sinks have dropped to 16, but they're now double heat sinks. So this mech now has a capacity of cooling down to 32 heat in a single turn. You have to really, really try to get this thing to overheat at all. The other benefit that it has is that it also now has a pair of extended range PPCs. So where the 9H that everybody has access to, and that basically anybody can buy from any military contractor, it can only reach out to 18 hexes. This thing can reach out to 23. This thi-
So it basically functions like a sort of like a long range sniper. Is that is that what I'm hearing?
yes. So not only if you get the Mackie into a spot where it can sit and it doesn't have to move, you can fire both ERPPCs and its new Gauss rifle at 22 hexes. That's almost across an entire battlefield that you can reach out and punch somebody right in the face with 35 points of damage. This version of the Mackie is an absolute monster. And this is the monster that this is the type of monster that the Terran hegemony used to enforce the Star League code of conduct, basically. This mech is one of the mechs that made the Star League Defense Forces scary to literally every other great house.
Then all the war crimes.
Nah, no
Well, I
war
can't forget
crimes.
about the war crimes.
Yeah, no war crimes yet. There is a specific mech. There's a specific mech that we'll get to. That you take one look at its loadout and you will see very quickly that it was entirely intended to be nothing but a war crime machine. Yes, let's see here. Yes, Cairn. It is the Mackie. We're starting with the grandpappy of all battle mechs.
Hello, chat.
Hello, chat. How's it going?
We'll be covering other stuff. Don't worry. Yeah. So besides the two ERPPCs, which are scary, and the Gauss rifle, which is one of my favorite tools of war. Eventually we'll get to the Highlander, and the Highlander is terrifying because of that Gauss rifle. We still have the
And
Beagle.
that's where Ghost is gonna be like, oh, the Highlander. It's so beautiful.
There's
It's
gonna
so
be
great.
there's gonna be bagpipes just the entire episode.
Scotland forever.
Scotland forever.
No, this is not a custom Mackie. This is the Royal variant. At least as far as I know, this is not a custom one. This is just a version of the Mackie that the Star League Defense Force used. Very briefly. But so to go along with the Mackie, as is often the case in Battletech, there were failed experiments. So as good as the Mackie is, the Bellerophon, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things that pop up that you don't find them anywhere, and then some dude posts it somewhere, and you're like, that looks pretty legit. So, but the Bellerophon here, the BEL-1X is an experiment, an unsuccessful experiment. There's no nice way of putting this. This thing sucked. This thing was awful.
I love its posture, though. It
Yeah.
looks like it's ready.
Yeah. So this thing was absolutely just it was designed to work alongside the Mackie as a heavy mech, and it kind of suffered for it. It had the same primitive armor as the Mackie, so this thing was developed around the same time as the 5S and the 6S. It's only got 14 heat sinks, but that's plenty. Because it's only got two large lasers. Personally, I'd prefer, more heat sinks, keep this thing at least a little heat neutral, but two large lasers and an SRM4 made this thing horribly imbalanced. It needed a lot of technology to actually be sorted out before it could actually be properly functional. The thing kept falling over, like, really badly. So between the primitive armor, the primitive fusion engine, and the primitive gyro built into it, it's a piece of crap. There are no other models than this. One experimental version, and that was really it. Nothing else. Does have higher speed. That was kind of its intended goal, was it can outpace the Mackie, so it can maneuver.
It has the posture of a little guy, therefore it runs incredibly fast.
It has the
Yeah.
posture of like a old arcade enemy.
Yeah. So there was a brief time during the Blakist holy nonsense where the design was kind of reintroduced, specifically on Solaris 7, but there's no real... It's not like that really tells us anything, because if it's a Solaris 7 arena brawler, yeah, sure, whatever. You replace the primitive fusion engine with a decent one, upgrade the gyro, all that kind of stuff. But by that point, you've got much better options than, this 1,000-year-old design. The Mackie as a mech was in service for approximately 700 years in some form or fashion. This thing, no. They tried to make it work. It failed. There really was no resurrecting this after the failure, because by the time anybody got back around to this design, much better things were already on the market. But a design that did see much better service life was the EMP-1A Emperor.
Now, is this still in the Mackie? Are we still in the Mackie family of mech taxonomy?
Kind of. These are all the earliest mechs that were designed. So the Emperor was first designed in 2502. And this is also the first mech, so the first 90 plus ton assault mech to incorporate jump jets. New CGL rendition of it, huh? Let's take a look at that real quick. Ooh. Yeah. That's not a bad design, honestly.
It's a stocky lad.
Yes. It is very chonk.
It's very round.
Yes. Very round. But the Emperor here is not bad. For a 2502 mech, this original model, the 1A, has very good armor. It's only got 10 heat sinks, but considering the loadout that it has, that's not terrible. I would take this. I would throw this into I would throw one of my pilots into one of these. 3 medium lasers, 2 AC5s. You're not going to develop a lot of heat. You've got a very consistent damage base. You don't necessarily want this thing getting in close, but you're potentially dumping 25 points of damage into whatever you hit, assuming that you're able to make all shots hit. It is a little light for an assault mech loadout, but it's old. It's a very old design. Not really. There weren't really a lot of things going on at the time this was developed to really be like, oh yeah, no, we need bigger guns. Now, the 6A might be a little bit more what you're looking for, Karen. Oh yeah, no. The Age of War stuff is it's interesting because you'd see where a lot of the stuff really kind of started coming into where everything, like how everything eventually came about, because the 6A is another one of those situations of you took something and it was essentially just an overdeveloped prototype, and now you actually have a mech. Medium laser, 2 medium pulse lasers, 2 LBX-10s, and 2 large lasers. Yeah, pretty much the SLDF standard was the standard. There really was nothing else. The great houses were trying, which is where the Emperor comes from, honestly. This constant chase of the other 5 houses wanting what House Cameron has access to, and House Cameron having to then keep up with them experimenting and doing whatever nonsense they're wanting to do. Yeah, the LBX, good. The large lasers are good. You've got a lot of long range hitting power. Also upgraded the heat sinks, so we went from 10 to 12 and upgraded them to double heat sinks, so you can cool up to 24. Let's see here. 16, 18. Yeah. You're only going to be doing 18 heat firing the LBXs and the 2 large lasers at range, and you're going to slowly strip away a lot of armor. Still got the jump jets, so you're still looking at a movement profile of 353. Jump jets are amazing in the right mech. What do you guys think of this one?
Ooh.
The stat line's pretty good.
Yeah.
The equipment's nice. For some reason, I feel like that it's not as tanky as the previous ones, but I guess
It's supposed to look tanky, but it's kind of not.
Yeah. So this one, compared to the 9H, yeah, the 9H only has 6 additional points of armor compared to the Emperor 6A. Sorry, it's only got 4 more points of armor. So it's not the tankiest. Like, these are not the tankiest mechs to ever mech, but considering the fact that what you're dealing with is the 9H. All right. See you, Karen. Considering the fact that you're going up against 2 PPCs and an AC-20, this thing's got plenty of armor.
I do think I've actually played against this one, though, now that I take a look at it. Yes, I have. I have played against this one.
Yeah. How's your
I
experience
might
fighting
even
it?
have it. I remember it tearing apart my urban.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I know isn't a high bar, but it's just always funny to see urbans explode.
Yep. Urbies are one of those mechs where there's a specific factor for it. There's a specific battlefield that an urban can fit into. The Emperor is not that. The Emperor is the opposite of that. This is an attempt. All these mechs are an attempt to just be as generalized as possible. Because you notice
Kind of.
if you notice, every single one of these has basically been a juggernaut.
Yeah. Now that you mention it,
Yeah. So the juggernaut role when it comes to mechs and vehicles and BattleTech is essentially just that is your universalist. It doesn't specialize. It's not a sniper where you park it in a spot and you just take pot shots at enemy units. It's not a missile boat where you keep it in the back next to the sniper and just lob missiles at whatever you see. It's not a brawler where you want it to get up in the opponent's face so they can't get at your sniper and your missile boat. Your juggernaut's there. Your juggernaut is basically there to be scary, be angry, and draw the attention.
okay. Yeah, for some reason, I always thought that juggernauts were like at a. If we were putting them in tiers, I thought that juggernauts would be above assault. But now that you put it that way,
Yeah, no. You can have so hypothetically you could have a light juggernaut. Usually you're not going to see that because light mechs are they're too small. You're going to see them be scouts, you're going to see them be snipers, you're going to see them be missile boats, things like that. You're not really going to see them be juggernauts. Um Heavy or mediums you'll also see be brawlers a lot of the time. Heavies you'll see be brawlers, missile boats, snipers, juggernauts. Assault mechs you will see juggernauts a lot because they've got the armor to be able to sit there and tank hits like you would not believe.
give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Yep. We're gonna take a quick break here and then we'll pop back in
Water
and
break,
continue.
everyone.
Yeah,
Get
water
hydrated.
break and we'll continue talking about the Emperor. All right. So after the 6A, actually, I might have these backwards. Doesn't matter. We've also got the 5A here. 5A.
Look at that stride.
Yeah.
Look
So
at him.
I think I did have these slightly backwards in my my roster here, but that doesn't matter. So the 5A, 16 upgraded to 16 heat sinks from the 10 of the 1A. But we did upgrade to 3 medium lasers, 2 AC5s, and 2 large lasers. We also dumped a lot of primitive equipment, which is good. Same movement profile, 353. It's a good generalist mech. I mean,
Listen, just going off that stride alone, this is a guy. This is main character vibes. That's a JoJo's bot.
This is the character that fucks a lot of the female characters.
this is the Chad. Is that what we're saying?
This is the Giga Chad. Look at this.
Giga Chad
Look
mech.
at that.
All right. Well, so 5A eventually goes into the 6A, and then we get the 6A EC. So this is a slightly weird one, because this version is a clanner mech. So basically, what happened here is after the fall of House Cameron and the death of the Star League, obviously Alexander Kerensky took the SLDF forces with him on the Great Exodus, and eventually his son Nicholas formed the clans. So the EC is what historians have applied to this model because all it really is a 6A that left on the Exodus and got upgraded with early clanner tech. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, what we wind up having here is same armor profile, same movement profile. We have swapped out the 16 heat sinks of the 6A for 14 double heat sinks, which then allows us to offset a couple of things here. And so we end up with a pair of medium pulse lasers, an ER large laser, an LB5X autocannon with cluster munitions, a Streak SRM4 prototype, an ER large laser, and an LB10X autocannon. All of these clanner versions. So the this ER large laser is actually going to hit slightly harder and go longer than an inner sphere extended range long laser. Same
So
thing
it's
with
because of the main characters.
yeah.
Clanners rise up.
Silence clanner. I'll punt you out an airlock. But yeah, so the medium pulse lasers, you'll notice they don't have this little C here. That's because that's inner sphere pulse lasers. Meanwhile, all the rest of these are clanner tech. So this is in that weird interim period where Nicholas is starting to formulate the clans into what they eventually become, but the clanner tech has not had a chance to really formulate into the superior version of its inner sphere equivalents exclusively. It still has to be melded with old inner sphere tech. But we are out of the Star League era and into the Succession Wars era with this. So you're only really going to see this model amongst the clans and in their interclanner conflicts. Okay. Now, the 6D, this one is, this kind of shows you how long the Emperor stayed relevant. The 6D is specifically a Federated Sons or House Davian model. And this is a Blakist era rendition of the Emperor. So we've been able to recover a bunch of old tech. So you'll see an XL engine. The double heat sinks are back. A lot of the extended range weaponry is back. Awesome. It's great. 28 cooling capacity on this thing. With 3 ER medium lasers, 2 ER large lasers, and a pair of rotary AC5s.
I forget, rotary ACs are the ones that you have to roll a bunch of times for, right?
Yes.
And if you
So,
fail, they get jammed.
yes. So the rotary, hang on, you can use a rotary AC5 up to 6 times, but each time you roll, there's more heat being produced, and you also do have the potential for the weapon system to jam. So you're potentially looking at 30 points of damage, because it does do 5 damage per shot. But you know, if you get lucky, you're only going to stack up 6 heat by the end of all 6 of those shots, and you're going to do 30 points of damage per rotary AC. But yeah, you are going to run the risk of this thing jamming and having very significant issues with that, which is part of the reason why they put so many lasers in the thing. And again, you'll also notice this thing is classified as a juggernaut, despite the fact that it has a range of 12 hexes on the mediums, 15 on the rack 5s, and 19 on the large lasers. I'd kind of qualify that more as a sniper rather than a juggernaut, but you also don't have anything that you can't use, in face range. So is what it is.
It is what it is.
This is a very good model. And considering the fact that this mech, just to remind everybody, originally designed in 2502, and it's still kicking around during the Blakest era.
What is the time gap between those two?
So the Blakest era starts in 3067. So 500 plus years, and this model or this particular chassis is still getting upgraded and kept around.
567 years.
Yep.
This is like people taking care of like cars from 100 years ago at this point.
Yeah. This is the equivalent of if the Mackie is a Ford Model A, this is the equivalent of somebody having a functional Ford Model T in 2025. Now, alongside the 6D, we have the 6L, which is a little bit of an interesting take on this because this is a Capellan model. The Capellans don't typically have assault mechs.
What do the Capellans mostly use?
So, because the Capellan Confederation is one of the smallest territories in any particular century or era, what you come across is that they don't have the same financial stability as some of the other great houses do. So House Liao makes do with a lot of lights, mediums, and heavies with the occasional assault weight mech. Just it's one of those things. Like the opposite to the Capellans is the Lyran Commonwealth, where there is the meme of the Atlas or the Assault Scout Squad.
Okay, so this is a rarity for them. Well, I mean, it seems like everyone was using them if they're keeping it. If it's been around for like 500 years, I would assume that everyone's using them, so I guess it must have been trendy.
Yeah. So
But this is the Toyota Helix of battle mechs.
Oh no, we'll get to the Toyota Helix.
Or is that the Urban?
Yeah, the Urby is the Toyota Hilux. Yeah, so the simple reason why the Capellans were able to get their hands on these is that more than likely the chassis are so old that the Lyran Commonwealth, the Federated Sons, whoever offloaded them for cheap, and the Capellans were able to afford them and then re-outfit them to be the Capellan preferred loadout. So you'll see a couple of things here. On the one hand, the Capellans really like their stealth armor, especially once you get into the actual like succession wars. The Capellans, because they don't have the financial stability of the bigger great houses, they do a lot of experimenting with stuff, and so they eventually develop stealth armor, which is great for them because it makes their stuff really hard to hit. They also really, really like their ECM suites. So you'll notice the armor layout is the same, but on the actual critical hit table, you'll see several points where it just says stealth. That's the stealth armor. It's also got a Guardian ECM suite, which ECM suites are fantastic because one, it hides a full-on assault mech, so your radar and your sensors aren't able to pick it up properly. And part of that is that ECM suite can be fired up to boost out ghost signals. So the ECM suite will be telling you that this Emperor that just shot you in the face is actually 60 meters to your right.
That's actually scary. That's
Yeah.
actually pretty scary.
Yep. Or you'll get a radar ping back, and the radar ping will tell you that, it's a 20-ton medium mech. You got this. No, sorry, 20-ton light mech. You got this, boss. You rock up, and it's a 90-ton assault mech. Or it'll tell you, yeah, that mech that just shot you that we can't get a proper beat on. Yeah, it's because there's actually 3 of them. Like ECM suites are scary. And if you have a C3 system or an improved C3 system from Comstar or the Word of Blake, this thing can start causing all kinds of havoc with those systems and prevent them from talking to each other properly. So if you really like your C3 systems, the Capellans are typically going to be your worst nightmare to actually have to fight, because you're not going to be able to use your proper tactics. You're going to have to resort to just punch face tactics because your stuff can't communicate to each other.
Battletech gets really fun whenever you just smash into each other.
Oh, it can be for sure. The Capellans also put triple strength Myomer in this thing. So you do actually want to overheat this thing, which can be a little hard to do because you have an ERPPC and a Gauss rifle. Gauss rifle hardly produces any heat at all, but you do have 4 medium pulse lasers. So you have to get this thing in close, and you have to just constantly alpha strike in order to keep the heat up. So you could potentially get a movement profile of 363 instead of 353. This next one is a little bit interesting because this is kind of the exact opposite.
Is this one loud and proud?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
that's a lot more guns.
It is. So the EMP-6M is a Blakist Free Worlds League model. Long story short, we kind of touched on this last week. At one point in time, when the Word of Blake had finally complete control over Comstar, they got in good with Thomas Merrick, who was in charge of the Free Worlds League at the time, and swapped him out for a body double. And basically, the Word of Blake became the government of the Free Worlds League. Not directly, but because the body double of Thomas Merrick was a member of the Word of Blake, whatever the Word of Blake wanted, the Free Worlds League did. So this is, even though this is technically a Free Worlds League model, it is also technically a Blakist model. So we've got 10 double heat sinks. We've got 1 ER medium laser in the head, a medium pulse laser in the center torso, 2 more medium pulse lasers in the right and left torsos, and an ER large laser and light Gauss rifle, which is fun, in the right arm with an ER large laser and another light Gauss rifle in the left arm. It then also has that improved C3 computer that the Blakeists just absolutely adored.
I would bring this one. I would use this one.
Yeah. So the C3I system is good. I prefer the old-fashioned C3 system because despite the fact that the C3 system doesn't have the uninterruptibility of the C3I, the C3I, you are very, very limited. And as a Merc commander, I don't like having my units limited to 6 models that are able to communicate and function as a singular cohesive unit. I prefer being able to send out an entire company if I have to. The light Gauss rifles are also kind of fun. They've got about half the damage of a regular Gauss rifle, but they get more range for a little bit less tonnage. They're not bad. They're not bad at all. I kind of prefer my full size Gauss rifles. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, the big Gauss rifles are cool. But whenever I play, I like it. I do like Gauss rifles. I think they're neat. But ACs are cool too.
Oh yeah.
Big shoots.
I prefer everything to like. I kind of partition off certain stuff. Eventually, we'll work our way up to it. But one of my favorite mechs is the Hollander. That one
When are we gonna get to
is
my
what's that?
when we get to my favorite, the Marauder?
Oh, we'll get to the Marauder pretty quick. I think the Marauder actually came into production pretty quickly into the SLDF lifespan because the Marauder is the mech of the SLDF gunslinger program. So when we get to that, we'll kind of cover that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this mech is not bad. This mech has some good stuff. You definitely like once you start knowing what the mentality of Comstar and the word of Blake is, this mech just screams Comstar.
You're talking about the one we're looking at currently, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it because that it's of efficiency, or
Sort of.
why did you
So
say Comstone?
the dead giveaway that this is a Comstar mech is one, the light Gauss rifle, and two, the C3I system. Comstar Comstar is the organization behind the C3I system, which is part of the reason why you can only fit 6 mechs into that network at any given time, because a Comstar level 2 formation is 6 units. So you wind up with being able to send out a either a 6 mech formation, a 6 tank formation, a 6 battle armor squad formation, and their systems are all able to coordinate with each other, so they don't have to actively share telemetry data over the radio and potentially get it wrong. It's all being shared via the computer system. So this emperor doesn't actually have to see its targets to hit them. It can rely on a lighter scout mech in the formation to get the telemetry data.
So this one can shoot, like it on the tabletop, it can shoot over terrain as long as someone else sees it.
Essentially, yes. I if I remember the rule correctly, and if I understand it correctly, it the emperor does actually have to be able to fire the shot direct, so it can't like shoot through a building or through a mountain. It can shoot through trees, which normally would impact its accuracy, but because of the C3I system, if there is another mech in its C3I network, it doesn't actually lose that. It gets to use the other mech's proximity to adjust the hit probability. So the light Gauss rifles, even though long range is, 25 hexes, if there's another mech right up in its target's face, it'll basically count as a +0 to the gunnery skill, if that makes sense to you.
I think it does. I would need to work with it on the table.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, right, long range gives you a more difficult role. The C3I system says so long as you've got somebody right up next to the target, it's like your Emperor is right next to the target as well, even though he's 25 hexes away. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has a lot of... I think they're good weapons on there. I think this one looks good.
Oh yeah, no. These are all good weapons. These are all good weapons. There's nothing on this thing that jumps out and says, "Hey, this is bad." There's nothing here. Everything here is good. Oh, and this is also the first Emperor that's a sniper instead of a Juggernaut.
Well, maximum range 25 tiles. That's a pretty long range.
Yeah. Yeah, this thing is meant to stay in the back, basically. Now, the 6M2, this is a retrofit, sorry, not a retrofit. This is a refit of the 6M conducted in the Duchy of Oriente, which eventually became the Oriente Protectorate. You don't need to worry about it too much. That's more for the historians to quibble about. I am just a mercenary commander. But long story short, it's a breakaway of the Free Worlds League, which is why it's a refit of the Word of Blake model. So instead of a C3I computer, they stripped that out and put in a C3 Slate. Bless you. So this thing can be plugged into the C3 network that I prefer, which means you do have to put a couple of mechs that have the C3 master system built into them, and everything is suddenly sharing telemetry data. That's really the only change. Everything else is exactly the same.
As opposite of the one we saw previously.
Yes. This thing needs to be in a formation with a specific other C3 computer. But you could effectively have, let's see, you can plug three C3S systems into a C3M. So you could have 9 of these. You could have 9 of this mech and 3 other mechs with a master system, and they're all sharing data. This is why I like this system better than the C3I. C3I, you've got 6. I can have 12. Booyah.
Whoa.
What?
Whoa.
All right. Now, 6S here. This is Lyran Commonwealth. Prepare to see some expensive stuff.
I'm already looking at the price of it.
Yep. So, this model, 12 double heat sinks, still Blakist era, medium laser, 3 medium pulse lasers scattered across the torso, and a pair of LBX 20s in the arms. It then also is packing several tons of both slug and cluster munitions. So remember how I said with the Mackie we didn't really see crit fishing just yet? This thing is designed for crit fishing. You've got the 4 lasers to punch through armor. You've got the slugs for the LBX-20 to punch through armor, and then you've got cluster munitions to go fishing for critical hits on the internal systems.
Which ones are the cluster munitions?
Essentially, they are AC-20 shotgun shells.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. They also stuck an XL engine in the thing, so it's lighter. But because it doesn't have any triple strength myomer, it's back to its original 353 motion profile.
It's not going anywhere anytime fast.
Yeah, it's going to be rocking the same kind of profile as like an Atlas. It's not crazy fast, and it's not really going to be able to run anything down, and with that relatively short weapons range, oof. Once it gets in range though, you're in for a world of hurt because this thing is going to start hammering you really hard. The Lyrans like
It's doing its best.
Yeah, the Lyrans really like their AC-20s. All right. Now this one here is another very interesting model because this one is from the Fortress Republic years. So this one's from the Republic of the Sphere. The Republic of the Sphere and the Blackout era. There's a lot of stuff on here that was very, very experimental. The Republic of the Sphere really experimented with stuff. So we're gonna have to go into this one for a little bit. 18 double heat sinks, increase the movement profile to 463. Medium laser in the head, ECM suite, Clanner model in the center torso with a risk emergency coolant system in the center torso as well. Pair of medium pulse lasers in the side torsos, a risk hyper laser in the right arms, and a void signature system scattered all over. Real quick here, let's just kind of break some of this down. Void signature system is a hybrid of the chameleon light polarization shield and the null signature system from the Star League era. The Word of Blake has something kind of similar called mimetic armor. Basically, active camo that the elites in Halo have and the chameleon cloaks in 40K.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. If this thing sits in one spot with that void signature system, it basically becomes invisible because the armor plates match the terrain.
I think that's really cool. Have you seen that material? That cloth material that actually bends the light around it?
No, I have not seen that.
What? Can you
No,
show it?
It's like a cloth material that actually kind of makes you sort of invisible.
Huh. See, I know they've been experimenting with this for years, but I didn't know. I don't know off the top of my head what you're talking about. You'll have to send a link of it to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Yep. Well, you're finding that. So this risk super cooled myomer that this thing is also outfitted with. This stuff is wild. So, long story short, what this stuff does is it makes it so that the myomer muscle bundles that drive the mech don't heat up. Okay. So you can run this thing at, it's 60K an hour all day. No heat gets produced at all. The trade-off with it is it's incredibly difficult to maintain, which is why once the Republic fell during the Dark Age, it just kind of stopped existing. Once the Republic of the Sphere died, this thing died with it. One of those situations of practicality has to win out. It's just how it is. It's also the emergency coolant system.
I sent you the thingy, by the way.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. Essentially, it's just an improved version of the automatic shutdown system that all mechs have if they begin to overheat. The thing tended to fail catastrophically if it failed. So, like full meltdowns, stuff like that.
And it's usual stuff.
Yeah.
Bro wasn't managing his heat sinks.
Yep. The heatsink override kit that goes along with it. I don't know. It gives you a -2 bonus, or -2 target modifier to avoid a shutdown. The Republic of the Sphere, they try to do some stuff, and they experimented a lot, and it didn't work out. A lot of these systems were very, very experimental, were incredibly difficult to maintain. Just my opinion, not worth it. The hyper lasers are cool though.
Of course, they're called hyper lasers.
Yeah. So they produce a ton of heat. You can see right here, 24 heat every time you fire one of these hyper lasers. But they're rocking 20 damage out to 25 hexes. These lasers are scary. They're partially derived from clan improved laser tech. Boo. Cringe. But yeah, these hyper lasers. If there is anything off this mech that I want, it's the hyper lasers. I will absolutely replace my Hollander's Gauss rifle with a hyper laser.
What's the price? Is that a 3 or a 2? No, it's 3,000. That's an expensive
3,114 battle
lad.
value.
What is an average game? 5,000 points?
Something like that, yeah. This thing's expensive.
I mean, I can see that.
Yeah, anytime you see this symbol right here, that Republic of the Sphere symbol, it's gonna be an expensive mech. It's gonna be expensive.
It doesn't even have enough heat sinks to fire both of its hyper lasers at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Like this thing is built around this heatsink override kit. The entire idea is that you can drive this thing super hot and you're gonna have to give it a chance to cool down. But it's pumping out some damage. This thing can pump out 40 damage at 25 hexes. That's insane.
If you make it your commander, you're definitely hurting something.
Yes, you will absolutely be hurting something. You will be suffering reduction of movement. So, yeah. Oh, and hey, the bot is working. It blocked somebody trying to sell me viewers. We're
Would
not.
you like to buy 15,000 people?
Yeah, no. We're trying to do this grassroots. We're trying to do this genuinely. I want people to tune in because I'm funny and I know how to shoot guns really good. Not because
you could just stream yourself at the gun range.
I could, yeah.
You'll get all the fucking rednecks watching.
Yeah, all of the gun nerds. All right. Next, we have this 7L. This is another Capellan model. So stealth armor's back. Triple strength Myomer's back. They took the jump jets away, which is a crime. This is why no one likes Capellans. 12 double heat sinks. That's really good, considering the fact that we're back to a pair of AC-10s, couple medium pulse lasers, single ER large laser, and the Guardian ECM suite's back. This is very much a dumbed down version, but Hey, is what it is, right? Lastly, we
Indeed.
have this. The 8L is an upgrade to the Capellan 7L. Still the 20 or the 12 double heat sinks, but we swapped out the AC 10s for LBX 10s. Still triple strength armor, still stealth armor, still guardian ECM suite. But we've got one of the funniest weapons ever developed by the Inner Sphere, the plasma rifle.
Now, what does the plasma rifle do?
Oh, we're gonna come back to the plasma rifle because you're gonna love this thing. Instead, we're gonna focus on the re-engineered lasers here for a quick second. So the re-engineered lasers, if we compare this to the 7L, so medium pulse lasers are fun because they do a little bit more damage than a regular medium laser because they do exactly what it says on the box. They pulse, which is cool. So you get an additional point of damage at the cost of some range, right?
Yeah.
So the re-engineered lasers, you're still doing the 6 damage, but you've got the longer range of a regular medium laser. So, long story short, it's a hybrid of clan heavy lasers and pulse lasers. So, now the plasma rifle, this is where things are going to get very, very fun. The plasma rifle has a handy dandy little doohickey here. Okay. Um, the way the plasma rifle works is that it does 10 damage and it produces 10 heat on the mech that fires it. It also does heat on the mech hit by the plasma rifle. It's essentially a giant flamethrower.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. This single gun is one of the reasons I prefer my mechs to be heat neutral, because if I can't overheat my mechs, then you firing a plasma rifle at me, it's going to annoy me, sure, but it's not really going to worry me that much because, oh no, you know, I'm piloting an Emperor 8L and you
Hello?
hit me with your 8L.
Hello.
Hello? We having some technical difficulties there?
Yeah, slightly. Uh, go back to where you were talking about not being annoyed with the plasma gun,
Oh yeah.
plasma rifle.
Yeah. So, if
Oh shit, you're still going in and out.
am I? I think it's on your end.
Yeah, it's
We
the. Let me log in and come back out.
okay. Sorry, technical difficulties. We'll
Or
edit
go
it.
out, log back in.
We'll edit out the technical difficulties in post. Sorry, everybody. We're having some minor technical difficulties here.
We're having a bit of a fucky wucky, everyone.
Yes.
It's still doing it. Oh shit. Okay, it's on my end. My apologies. Just keep on going. It'll fix itself.
All right. It'll fix itself. Okay. So.
You're recording on your end. That's all that matters.
Yep. All right. So the reason I like the plasma rifle, and why I like my mechs to be heat neutral. So I have a specific mech in my merc regiment that has a plasma rifle. Now it's a light mech, but because it's got a plasma rifle, it is absolutely heinous against bigger things. Let's go back to the 6X. Okay. So the 6X's biggest problem is these hyper lasers are going to cause it to start overheating. Well, if it pops both of those hyper lasers, it's now sitting at 48 heat and cools down to 12 once the heat sinks kick in and mitigate everything, right? I hit it with a plasma rifle. It's now actually sitting at 22. That's shutdown territory. If I'm rocking that particular light mech and the Emperor 8L, and they both manage to hit the Emperor 6X, that's going to bump it up to 32 heat even after the heat sinks cool. That is a guaranteed shutdown. And the only thing that's going to keep the 6X in play is because of its specific heatsink override kit. That'll potentially keep it actively engaged in the fight, but otherwise, it's shutting down guaranteed from a pair of plasma rifle shots. That's why this thing, the EMP-8L, is actually worrying to go up against, because if you are sitting there, especially if you're driving a clanner mech, because clan mechs have, even with the double heat sinks, clan mechs are very aggressive and they typically will run hot. So you start slapping them with plasma rifle shots and they start to overheat and go into shutdown very quickly.
All right, everything seems to be working now.
Okay. Were you able to get at least most of my
Yeah,
love of plasma rifles?
I was listening to your last little bit there.
Yeah. So plasma rifle, very good. Even if
Plasma
it was
rifles, very based.
Yes. Very based, very fun. Much longer range than a standard flamer, which is the other reason I like them. Plasma rifles also, because of the particulars of how they work, so they do extra damage when you hit certain things with them. Anything that has heat sinks built into it, so your tanks, your fighters, your VTOLs, um, they just take the 10 heat points added on to their normal cooling loadout. Um, Battle armor, infantry, ve- uh, vehicles, specifically aerospace fighters don't do this. They just take the heat, but vehicles take an additional 2d6 of damage on top of the 10 damage that the plasma rifle pumps out. So, plasma rifles are very scary.
I've been inspired. Maybe I'll see about using a plasma rifle next time I play. It also just sounds like a good tactical weapon to use. I wanna make someone else use a little bit more heat next turn.
Yes.
So you pepper him with a plasma gun.
Yep.
And do they need a wound to cause heat, or can they just get hit?
No. So if you hit a target with a plasma rifle, two things happen simultaneously. So the first thing is you do normal 10 points of damage calculation. Second thing that happens is that the person or the mech that's been hit um, bumps their heat up by 10.
Okay,
Um,
that's interesting.
yeah. So you remember that first game that we played? That first game
Not really. Must be a repressed memory.
Well, so Jackie was driving a Timberwolf, and
As God intended.
yep, and you thought that she exploded. Um,
Yeah.
but That was because we hadn't actually gotten to the cooling phase yet. So what ended up happening is that she actually just dropped down from like 32 heat to 2. Well, against a plasma rifle, she would have gone to 42 heat and dropped down to 12, which
Okay.
gives her the -2 movement penalty. But like I said, depending on exactly what you have going on, you could very easily wind up in a situation where her mech just shuts down and she's a sitting duck until she actually manages to drop enough heat that the mech can be rebooted. Flamers do this, but you have to be real close to them. The plasma rifle can do this from way far away, which that's the big advantage the plasma rifle has. That's why I bothered to get my hands on a Capellan Gwyn, because it has when we get to that point in time, we'll cover that in more detail, but it's a light mech and you can outfit it with a plasma rifle, and it's very good at harassing.
Not as good as those fleas.
Oh yeah, no, the flea. I can't wait for us to get to the flea.
The flea.
Yes, the flea. The flea is a fantastic mech. I don't care what anyone says.
I have bad experiences with the tiny mechs. No one
Yeah,
wants to use big mechs like a man. They want to use the tiny ones that I can't hit because they're moving around all over the place.
that's why I bring them.
I do love just slow marching.
My
I
my
do love slow marching the urbans up to bigger mechs.
my scout lance is they're very very well trained, and they are very good at what they do, and what they do is harass you to no end. They drive you insane. That is their job. All right. Any questions from the class?
No, you rabbit, you got one?
Yeah, that's what I can think of so far.
All right. Well,
I want to say this was very fun. Can't wait to get to the next one.
yes. We'll cover some more mechs next time. We're gonna keep going along with the mechs as they are introduced, um, and see where their development plan eventually goes. Kind of like pretty much exactly what we did today. Uh, kind of see the development of everything, but
I can't wait to get to the urbans.
yeah, the urbans, you're gonna have to wait until we start getting to the Succession War. But
Oh,
don't worry. The Star League era doesn't really have the Star League era has some of the big names got started in the Star League, but a lot of the mechs that people really love and use a lot um, come about as a direct result of the Succession Wars. So you're not gonna have to wait too long.
okay.
Alrighty. All right. Well,
Okay.
with that said, everybody have a great day. We will see you next time. And class dismissed.
Ring ding 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 ding.